Shalom. Mephibosheth there. Last session, I was sharing with you how God had spoke to me in that little church in Chatham, Ontario. For me, that was the first time ever that I had heard God speak to me. I should really say that's the first time ever that I listened and heard. For the most part, that's what I want to talk to you today about. For just a little while, about hearing from God. When Andy and I left that Chatham church that day, I said to Andy, "You can use that name now, because I believe." And Andy said to me in this deep Dutch voice, "What do you believe?" And I said to him, "Andy, I now believe the long-awaited Messiah that we Jews have been waiting for has come. And he is the Son of God." Then Andy prefaced that with, "How do you know that?" You see, Andy and I had not had conversations about this. Remember? The first video I shared, pointing my finger at him and saying, "Do not ever mention his name to me again." It was either the first or second video. When Andy asked, "How do I know that?" I said to him, "God told me, Andy. He spoke to me today, and I heard what he had said." I believe this was not the first time that God had spoken to me. Like I said, it's the first time I actually listened. Today I want to share my observations about that thought. Several years ago, Father spoke to me and he said, "Don't complicate what God has made simple." By the way, I've heard God speak to me many times after that day in Chatham, Ontario. Not every day. Some issues I'd have to wait before he spoke. He spoke through his written word sometimes to me. He spoke through what's out there. He spoke through the birds, the trees, the foliage, the sun, the moon. He spoke to me. There were things that he said to me through the environment. And he spoke to me through people. And often God would speak to me through his own voice. Yet I never heard an audible voice. Just to let you know that. I've always heard it inwardly, and I can't tell you really how. I can't really explain that to you. Although I know it wasn't my soul speaking, that I know it was my spirit speaking to me. His spirit speaking to my spirit, that I would understand. After what happened to me in this church in Chatham, Ontario, there was a major change in Richard. Major change. One day I've got to get Sharon here to share with you who I was back then. I was not seen as the nicest person in the world. I don't know how many of you have taken a DISC survey, D-I-S-C survey. It's used in many corporations. I've taken it many times, and I've taught on it over the years in a major corporation. In the DISC survey, there is one behavior style that most people don't appreciate, and that's the driver. Richard Mephibosheth Lichman was a major driver. I could smile at you and cut you off at the knees at the same time. That's who I was back then. Back then, I didn't talk to people. I didn't converse with people. My over 30 employees, they knew what to do, and they did it because they knew I expected them to do their job and do it well. As I said, there was a major change in me. And the very next day, it was obvious. I shared with my employees what had happened to me. All of a sudden, I became this very nice person. And it was confusing to them, baffling even to me. Several weeks went by, and I thought I was the only Jew in the entire world that believed that Yeshua was the Messiah. I didn't know of any others. Oh, Jews for Jesus was out there, but I had never heard of them before. And there weren't a great many Jews who believed what I believed at the time. It has grown exponentially through the years. I didn't realize until I started to read the scriptures. And by the way, I remember the next day I said to Sharon, "Do we have a Bible?" And she gave me her Bible that was presented to her when she was a very young girl. And I started to read. It's another story for another time. I'll share that. I need to share with you what happened over a period of weeks. I shared with my Jewish customers, Yeshua was the Messiah. I said to you before, I'm an observer, and I was observing myself and saying, do I want to be this person that is out there doing what he's doing? Saying what he's saying? The only one? The answer was no. So I remember this night. Restaurant had closed and everybody was gone. I went up into the front seat, sat there at the front of the restaurant. I'd done that before. And this is what I said to Father God. I do not want to be this freak. So what I need you to show me that Yeshua is the Messiah in a way that I can comprehend, I can understand, I can accept, not through the Bible, in some other way. I need to know for sure that what I was believing and what I am sharing is truth. And I kind of said it like that. I was kind of angry. Didn't hear anything. Shut off the lights in the restaurant and walked out the door and went home. The next day was not a good day for me. I was a little on the edgy side, and everybody around me knew that. So they kind of stayed their distance. It's interesting, even Sharon recognized it. She didn't say anything, but she knew it, and she knew to stay her distance. The following day, I was worse than the next day. I wasn't just edgy, I was downright nasty. I was angry. And when an employee would ask me about something, I was very abrupt in how I shared with them and what I told them. Then came the third day. Third day, I don't even think I wanted to be around me. That night, we closed up the restaurant. Everybody was gone. And I sat down in that same seat. I looked up and I said, I asked you to show me. And I stopped. And tears began to well up. And I said, Father, I am so sorry. I will never question you again. Here it is many years later. And I have never questioned him again. I can honestly say, never. What was it? Why did I cry? You're asking now. God spoke to me as I was sitting in that front seat. And this is what he said. Do you want to be what you are this day? Do you want your behavior to be what it is this day? Do you want your attitude to be what it is this day? Do you want to be what you've experienced the last 3 days, which has been the majority of your life? Or do you want to be and feel the way you felt when you believed me that first day? I've never questioned since then. Never. When I had my first heart failure and 5 bypasses, they actually had to perform surgery on Christmas Day. They had to bring in a crew especially for that. On Christmas Day, I never questioned. When our son Rick passed on, I never questioned. All the things that we've gone through, I've never questioned. I, like Sharon, my wife, say what she says. I now say it. I'm enjoying this journey, and I have a story to tell. I'm telling you part of that story now. I'm going to end today with something some of you may not like. I'm sorry. I'm going to share something with some of you that you might be a little offended. And I'm sorry, I do not mean to. Last Saturday, Sharon and I were sitting in the living room. We were watching the news. And she looked over at me. She muted the television. She looked over at me and she said, "Did you hear that Pat Robertson said that he had heard from God that President Trump will win the election?" And I said to her, "I didn't hear that. No, I didn't. But I believe that. I believe that Trump is going to win." And that was it. She turned the sound back up on the television, and about 5 minutes later I asked her to mute the television. Muting is I wear hearing aids, and if the television's going I can't hear her. About 5 minutes later, Father asked me a question. "Do you believe that Trump will win the election?" And my answer immediately was, yes, I believe that. And this is what Father God said to me. He will win. A few days later, we were at dinner with my daughter Annette, our daughter Annette, and my son-in-law Tim. And we were talking about politics. Sharon was talking about politics. I was doing mostly listening. And I said to them, "Let me share with you what happened the other day." And I shared that experience with them and how God spoke to me and asked if I believed that Trump would win, and I said yes. And then God, the Father, spoke and said, "He will win." And I was just watching the eyes, the expression of my children. And I said, "Let me share this with you. If Donald Trump does not win this election, I will never teach again. Because I believe that I can hear from God. I am the Messianic observer, and I observe what God shares with me to observe, and I only teach what He showed me to observe." My observations today and in the past have been this: God desires a relationship with you and I, and a relationship means that He wants to converse with you and He wants you to converse with Him. He wants a relationship of communication, and I believe that Father God communicated that truth to me, that Trump will win. And if he doesn't, Probably only one more video. But that's not going to happen. Mephibosheth. Signing off for today. Shalom.